Hello, Georgia551 here, upon request, and something I definitely didn't think I wanted to ever do, but so many people have requested it. I have decided to go through this mall and show you what it was like Christmas Eve 2020. The pandemic, well, you know that's going to hurt things, and it's also not the most prime of times, usually around 4 o'clock. It's pretty good, but we're here earlier because it's supposed to rain and it's supposed to flood, and that's not something that I want to go through, especially here since this place floods and floods badly. So with that being said, we are going to go through and show you what Christmas Eve is like. And yes, the pace is slightly more rushed, and yes, the tiny camera, it seemed to have not wanted to stay where I wanted it, so it might bob a little bit or be a little cockeyed, but you'll see it. And in the mall we go. Already was struggling a little bit with the camera, and will for a little bit longer, not too much. Anyway, we enter on the dead side of the mall, the Sears, and as you can see on this end of the mall, it's not very busy. So, what we also do here, which is what I typically do on Christmas Eve, is I walk the mall, do a lap, and go into the anchor stores. I do not consider Jo-Ann Fabrics as an anchor, even though it is a giant, it's a giant store full of crafts. There weren't too many people in there anyway. And as I said, this is pretty much the dead end of the mall. Once you get to the other half, it gets a lot better. Probably because Sears doesn't really help lack of a Sears doesn't help with the flow. And a lot of stores here closed because they were doing poorly, and not because they were here at this particular mall. Although the funny thing is, Claire's exists. And Old Navy on the right, that is an anchor, or it used to be, but I still call it one because it used to be in an anchor space. Then they crammed it into a space that's like a larger mall store. I forgot to go in it, but on the way back we do go through. Now you see that kind of arch-like doorway that we're approaching? That used to be the end of the mall. And then right before the 45-degree jog, which we won't go down right away, was the other end. And this portion used to be a department store called R.H. White's. And in the very early 80s, it was closed and turned into shopping space, like that Finish Line. And American Eagle doing okay. And Inoosh, not really much going on there. But the one store that was, holding its own, doing okay, was Burlington Coat Factory, or as it's called nowadays, Burlington, for quite a few years. But those of us that have been around quite a bit, we still call it Burlington Coat Factory. And here's the other sort of archway again. This is where the end of R.H. White's was. And then right at this point was an addition built in the 90s. It went a bit further. Burlington just took it over. As you can see, the skylight above. A little past where that skylight is, where the mall part used to end at one point. So now we're just gonna try and get through here, because the lines are surprisingly long, although, that's mostly due to maintaining a proper distance between others during these unusual times. Had to duck around a lot of people, and there were also a lot of people, not in this case there. There were a lot of people that don't seem to be paying attention as to where they're going, because quite a few times in here and in other places I had to go into the aisles and into the land of merchandise in order to avoid people, because, why pay attention? So, for some reason, this end over here is very, very bare. I don't quite get it. I I guess small children's clothes were a hot item. And there wasn't too much, there's the lines as I was about to say something, but I wanted to show you the lines. And here, ducking out of the way of someone because they were too busy not paying attention. Anyway, the lines are all the way back to where I was just standing, except in the middle. And because people are blocking the aisles or going through the men's coats to get back out. Also, they have one-way traffic, which kind of led to a little bit of a strange exit, but pretty much uneventful. So, that's a look through Burlington. And like I said, usually I do this, without recording, because personally I just never really did this kind of stuff till the mall, the great mall apocalypse or mapocalypse started to hit here and this general area. Again, we are going into what was the original part of the mall, which again was a R.H. White's, and the big dead store over to the left was a Chuck E. Cheese, and it was only accessible from the outside. So then we wound up behind a slightly slower group, which in the, for recording this video is not necessarily a bad thing. It helps keep things a little more stable because I'm not moving around as much. And again, somewhat struggling to keep the camera from moving around. It does not like to stay put, and it likes to go crooked. But as you can see, as we're heading more towards the other half of the mall, the traffic starts to get more busy. So now, as you see that other arch, that was, again, where the original mall ended and parking lot began. This was an early 90s edition here. So it mimicked more or less the late 80s edition. I may have said 90s edition back there, but that's not correct. But this is the early 90s edition, and it mimics what was the late 80s. And as you can see, it's kind of strange, but this is actually a somewhat busy. It just happened to be I'm hitting it at a bad time. So there's the Foot Locker, and there were a few people in there. And then we have the food court, which doesn't have any seating, courtesy of our little buddy, Mr. COVID. We know and love Mr. COVID so much. And there's the ridiculously large shoe department shoe store, which didn't have a whole lot going on. And there's the restaurants, not much going on there either. And of course we have to have a Dunkin' Donuts, which was on the very far right. We are heading towards the J.C. Penney, and the Mall Santa is right in front of it. And a lot of malls are not doing the Santa Claus this year because of the obvious reason. This mall is doing it, and they had an interesting way to do that. As you'll see here, Santa sits back, and people want to see Santa sit 6 feet away from him. In front of Santa makes for a good photo op that way. That way Santa and everybody else stays safe and, the whole distancing thing. Anyway, here we are in the J.C. Penney, which, it was a little light here. Wasn't too much going on. Although, further back in the store there was more going on. As we round the corner to head towards the back end of J.C. Penney's, you will see that there will be more people. It's kind of weird how it's set up that, in spite of women's being pretty much up front, it seems that the kids area, well, obviously because of Christmas, But even during non-holiday seasons, the kids area and the men's area tend to be the ones with the crowds. As you can see, there's a few people right over there. Still not too many people, although we have a few people over here. And everyone, for the most part, practicing, the guidelines. And of course, I am also following the CDC guidelines while recording this. I just need to put that in just for a disclaimer. And we actually saw each other. We didn't, no one wasn't paying attention. Everybody was there. Everybody was mindful of each other in that spot. But we definitely will find that it's not going to be the case later. Anyway, I got stuck behind these three, which isn't a bad thing. Again, because they were slower, it helped make the video a little more stable. Because like I said, to keep up with the flow of people and not to slow people down, the pace is a little more rushed. Here's the final clearance area, which is kind of strange. And here's those three again. She's having a lot of fun trying to keep those kids under control. Although I would have to say, for the most part, they weren't behaving too badly till we split at this next fork, as one of them just decides to go run off. Oh, the fun of having kids, I bet. Anyway, we're going to take a slight detour and see how the Sephora is going. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I never get it right. Anyway, here it is. When Penney was starting to tank, this was added. And there were just only a couple of people there. Kind of interesting. Usually when I go here and just walk around, there's usually more people there than what they are now. Anyway, again, adjusting the camera because it likes to go anywhere but stay where it needs to be. Yeah, only a couple of people. And then we head out of Penney and pretty much head back where we started. So at this point, I just decide, see, here's another person that wasn't paying attention, even though I was right there. Anyway, again, we see that they sit somebody 6 feet in front of Santa. I also noticed as we were walking by the shoe place that the lights are on where the former Olympia is. That's probably where they kept most of the Santa stuff as well as some of the other mall fixtures while the Santa's there. And there are people in the shoe store. Not a lot, but decent numbers. Of course, as I always mention, because the quality isn't as good as the big guys, but this is not major stuff on my channel. So this is kind of the B stuff. So if you really want to see high quality stuff, you could see Wally B, you could see Retail Archaeology, and a bunch of others like Sal, or Ace's Adventure, the one that's for some reason was escaping my mind. Anyway, as you can see, now this is starting to look like how it has. This side is pretty busy usually. And like I said, not as busy as it used to be. Even before the pandemic, it would be significantly more people, but it wouldn't be a lot. It would be like double what you're seeing, more or less. So again, we have some people that were kind of not paying attention, but then they did. And there was nobody in that eyebrow place. And making the home stretch back into the original part of the mall. And Maurice, that did not last very long. CVS used to be there. Then they moved out because they wanted their own place. They're trying to get rid of their rental stores and putting up their own places, which that one did. So here we are, we're heading towards the other half, and as I said before, way back in the beginning, is that I forgot to go into the Old Navy, because thing is I do a lap, and as I do, I go into the anchors. Unfortunately, 2 anchors do not exist anymore, and that is of course the Macy's and the Sears. That would have lengthened the video quite a bit. Anyway, here we come to the Old Navy, and we are going to go in. Now, I don't know what happened. I guess it was, switching things around. And of course, there's a completely dead branch of the mall where Macy's is, and that other one used to be the mall office. So here we are, Old Navy. They took a anchor store and they put it in a slightly larger than normal department store. I mean, not department store, slightly larger than normal, mall tenant type location. So everything is really, really crowded, and they don't have as much. The original Old Navy took up half of what Burlington is in now, and it was a lot bigger, it was a lot roomier, you could easily get around. So you'll see when we round the corner and look out that there's people coming in and out of the Burlington from there. It's a little hard to tell because I'm trying to keep things moving and trying to get this video made as well. So there weren't too many people here in actuality, and that's just proving that it's just really tight in there. And then this person wasn't paying attention that people were in the aisles, and I decided to give those two some room just to be nice because I saw them coming. Anyway, back out and towards the Sears, and you can see how this is definitely the dead end of the mall. Again, we got the Joann on the left. The only store that's really working here is Spencer's. I mean, the Pearl Vision is a thing. That's the only person that went in there. So, yeah, that Spencer's, it's kind of dead. Anyway, we're heading out the door, more or less. There's the Joann's, and like I said, I don't consider it an anchor, so I don't go in. There is the massage parlor, and over there on the very far right was Friendly's. It always was Friendly's since the mall opened, and when that Friendly shut down, nothing has ever taken its place. So one thing I always do is we look into the Lens Crafters. There's a few people there. Before I leave, I always go and take a look inside the Sears. Remember what life was like, how it was. So sad. So many childhood memories in there. Some within view. And of course, the staple of them all, the Hurricane Simulator, which I have a video of and a review. Anyway, that's what there was Christmas Eve. Well, and there you have it. I do not have a steady hand, so yeah, I gotta have to deal with that. So that is Christmas Eve 2020. Yeah, the pandemic definitely has a play in things. I think all in all, this mall is holding its own. It's definitely struggling. It definitely has issues. But hopefully things will turn around in 2021 and we'll get some new tenants in here, hopefully. If not, at least be able to keep things flat so the mall survives. George F551 saying, hope you enjoyed and have a good one.